Today I am going to rate what quarterbacks are under the most pressure heading into the 2024 season to perform. Hi, welcome to Hold My Helmet, and I'm your host, Will Reichling. Number one, I definitely feel like this is by far the quarterback with the most pressure in the league, and this is one of the most pressurized situations for a quarterback, possibly in NFL history, Deshaun Watson. What has happened to Deshaun Watson? Because the first 3-4 seasons of his NFL career, he was off to a Hall of Fame start. And then all of a sudden, the whole thing with the massage therapist happened, gets traded to Cleveland, and he kind of hasn't looked like the same quarterback. 2022 in 6 games, 7 touchdowns, 5 picks. 2023, 6 games, 7 touchdowns, 4 picks. 79 passer rating, 84 passer rating, respectively. So he kind of has become like a different player. He went from one of the best quarterbacks in the league to being a probably an average, slightly below average quarterback in the last 2 seasons. A lot of that is because there's been a lot of young quarterbacks drafted that have kind of overtook Deshaun Watson, CJ Stroud, Jordan Love, and even like some years after he was gone, Lamar Jackson established himself. But that's just one factor. Another factor, it can't be ignored, this whole massage therapist situation. I know it was years ago, but I got to kind of rehash that just to kind of give everyone a little bit of a briefing on like why I think this guy is under the most pressure. And this has to be part of the situation. Like the Texans, let's not forget, they reached settlements with 30 different women who accused the NFL quarterback of sexual misconduct. 30 women, okay? Watson stated to the record publicly that he hired about 40 different therapists across 5 seasons in Houston. But what the New York Times found is that he booked appointments with at least 66 different women in just 17 months. 66 women in 17 months. Whether you did anything criminally wrong or not, that's just weird, man. 66 different therapists in less than 2 years is weird. No matter what you did, I don't know what you were doing. I don't really care because at that point, that's weird, man. That's just weird. I think this has something to do into the reason of why he's been slightly ineffective since he came back from this whole hiatus. I think a lot of it's in his head. And if you look at the stats, it kind of shows that. If last year, for instance, he started off a lot of games awful, brutal. Attempts 1 to 10, he had a 49 passer rating. Attempts 11 to 20, he had an 81 passer rating. Attempts 21 to 30, he had a 106.9 passer rating. And attempts 31 plus, he had a 136.6 passer rating. So as the game went on, as he threw more balls, as he got more comfortable, he really kind of got into a rhythm. I know it was a small sample size. It was just 5-6 games, but something to be said about that. First half, he had a 63.9 passer rating. Second half, he had 116.8 passer rating. So a clear difference between the first half and the second half. First quarter, he had a 46 passer rating. Second quarter, he had a 79 passer rating. Third quarter, a 92 passer rating. Fourth quarter, 147 passer rating. So he kind of lit it up a little bit in the fourth quarter. I mean, and we saw that in that Ravens game, probably the best half we've seen from him as a Cleveland Brown, where they kind of came back and won that game. It was a crazy game, Browns-Ravens, a couple weeks before he got hurt. Maybe the week before he got hurt, or the week before. But it showed that he started off a lot of games very shaky and kind of got in the rhythm as the game went on. I think a lot of that is because a lot of this is in his head. A lot of this is in his head because he knows he's under a lot of pressure because of the situation that he was under when he went on that little hiatus. Because I think that he knows deep down that he slightly did something wrong here. Again, I'm going to repeat it: 66 women in less than 2 months. It's weird. I think 66 women in less than 2 years. 2 months, that'd be insane. But less than 2 years, that's crazy. I think like 20 in less than 2 years is insane. 66? 66. I mean, guys, use your common sense. I know he wasn't criminally charged or anything, but you're up to something. I don't know what you're up to, but you're doing some weird stuff, man. So I think that's in his head. That whole thing. Maybe he's recovered, maybe he's not. I don't know. But all I know is that he was under a lot of scrutiny from a lot of different women, a lot of different corporations, sponsorships. He lost a bunch of sponsorships. So I think when he came back, he was under a lot of pressure to kind of right the ship and do very well. And you kind of saw that. He started a lot of games, shaky, probably because he was shitting the bed a little bit. And then as he got more comfortable in the game, he started to play a little bit more like Deshaun Watson. But the eye test, something was off. Making a lot of inaccurate throws, a lot of stupid throws. Just did not look like the playmaker he once looked like. It looked like a mental thing to me. It really looked like a mental thing. And what's the pressure going to the season? Hey, you are the highest cap hit. in 2024 this season. $63.8 million cap hit. That's insane. That's absolutely insane for a guy that's been an average, below average quarterback in the last 2 seasons. So not only is there pressure to perform like the quarterback you used to be, there's pressure coming from that whole situation that happened off the field. Now you're going to have people that don't even care about football, that they're always going to be hating on you. Kind of like a Michael Vick situation, but like I don't want to compare the two, but kind of in a way like a Michael Vick situation. Like everyone's always going to hate on you from here on out. Maybe if you win a Super Bowl one day and you become an MVP and make a case to be a Hall of Famer, people forget about that. But as of right now, like, people have a lot of doubts on you, and the way you ended last season with the injury was also kind of weird. Like, you're medically cleared to play one game, and then you just like chose not to play. The whole thing was a little fishy. The whole massage therapist situation is a little fishy. I kind of think this guy's a head case in the way, and the numbers show it. He was terrible in the first half, way better in the second half. Terrible in the beginning of his like first couple throws. Then he started to get a rhythm. You kind of tell that he was a little nervous, kind of shit the bed, because he kind of knows that the weight of the situation of what he's going through. So I do think there's something still there with him. You saw that in flashes so far that since he's been in Cleveland. Do I think he's going to be Deshaun Watson where he was like a top 5 quarterback in the league? I don't think so. But I think that, like, I would choose Cleveland to go 9-8 this season. So I do think he'll be okay this season. I think he'll have more of like what Russell Wilson had last season, where the numbers kind of look good, but he just doesn't look right. Doesn't look the same. And you gotta remember, like, a lot of this stuff, it was a lot on him, it was a lot on everyone else affected in that. And he missed a lot of time. And a lot of things changed in that time he missed. I know it was only like a season and a half, 2 seasons, but you know, it seemed like a lot has changed from when he was on the field as a Houston Texan to when he was on the field as a Cleveland Brown. I'll leave it at that. Number 2, the number 2 quarterback with the most pressure this season. I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers on the New York Jets. Why? This entire franchise, coming from a Jets fan, put their faith and hope on this guy's back. They did it last season, they're doing it again this season. How do I know that? They let him bring in Randall Cobb. They let him bring in Nathaniel Hackett. You know, they've done things to make Aaron Rodgers comfortable. I understand that. That has a 4-time MVP. I think he's arguably he's definitely a top 8 quarterback of all time, arguably top 5. So I understand why they did that. As a Jet fan, I agree with it at the time. But over the last season, you know, it was unfortunate that he got hurt. You know, you can't really control those kinds of things. But going into this season, it's not the same hype. I understand that. But it's still playoffs or bust. It's playoffs or bust. A lot of people, let's not forget that a lot of people think Aaron Rodgers is not the same quarterback anymore that he once was. And I agree with that. But I still think he is a top 10 quarterback, could potentially be like top 7 or 8. Maybe, I mean, if he has an MVP, it's even top 5, but I'm not going to push it to that point. But a lot of people think this guy's washed. And a lot of people, look, this guy, he likes to cause a circus. Maybe he doesn't mean to all the time, but he does. There was the Hard Knocks thing last year, and it became like the Aaron Rodgers show. The Hard Knocks thing, then when he gets hurt, very unfortunate, very disappointing. All we hear is about, oh, Rodgers might come back. Oh, Rodgers making great progress. And all he's talking about is how he might come back. And I get you want to be excited. You want to come back. You want to make a playoff push with your team. But it was a distraction. It gave Jets fans false hope. I never thought he was coming back. I'm sure half the team did not think he was coming back. It just was impossible, physically impossible. It wasn't going to happen, okay? So the fact that we even were going there was kind of stupid. Then there was the whole thing with RFK potentially being his vice president in the election, the nominee election. And it took him way too long to respond to that. You know, he let it sit for a week before he was like, oh, it's either retire or do that. And it's either retire or play football. I want to play football. But it took him too long to get to that point. He left the media kind of lingering a little bit. And I feel like he did that on purpose. I get that he likes playing with the media. And the media always hasn't been necessarily nice to Aaron Rodgers. But, you know, I feel like when Jets fans and Jets, the organization themselves need reassurance from Aaron Rodgers that he doesn't always necessarily give them the reassurance. Being a leader, you know, he should have been like, yeah, okay, next question, right away. But there was some delay there. There really was some delay there. Now, last but not least, he was preaching how we got to put all that BS beside us. We got to just focus on football, and then skips mandatory minicamp to go to Egypt. I love Aaron Rodgers. I think he's a top 5 quarterback of all time, but come on. You're coming off an Achilles injury. This is probably the most pressurized situation the New York Jets have been in since the Rex Ryan days. And all the eyes are on you, the highest media outlet in the country, possibly in the world, and you skip mandatory minicamp for this trip to Egypt that you could probably do every year after you retire, you have probably 30, 40 years of life after you retire. You can't wait till then. You have a couple of years left. He should be giving it his all. Kind of worries me. I know we're probably not going to be talking about that week 1, but all I'm going to say is that all of this adds to the fuel to the fire, the pressure cooker. Number 3, Bryce Young. No question. His rookie season was absolutely awful. Being the number 1 overall pick and being the worst quarterback in the league, there's no excuse for that. And I get that. There's no number of stats that I could pull up because, I like to pull up a lot of situational stats. Fourth quarter this, first 20 throws this, home versus road this. Nothing I could pull up. He was terrible. Awful. Completely awful. The numbers were terrible. But I saw the guy throw in college. I saw the guy play. He's got an arm. I think he can play in the NFL. I think he has an NFL arm. And the Panthers did everything they could this offseason to put pieces around Bryce Young. Pieces on the offensive line and pieces at receiver. They go and sign 2 guards and a tackle in free agency. They trade for Deontay Johnson. They draft Xavier Legette. They hire a nice young offensive head coach in Brian Callahan. I think that they're going to make a push to be slightly competitive this season. I haven't went going 8-9. That call me crazy, call me don't. But this is the year that Bryce Young has to show, okay, you have to show some development. I'm not saying make an MVP push, but let's see you throw 20 touchdown passes, Let's see you get your quarterback rating in the 90s, We need to see some growth from you because everyone's kind of shitting on you for being undersized, and rightfully so, because after watching last season, you kind of looked like a little kid out there. But rightfully, trying to defend him in a way, their line sucked. One of the worst lines in the league. The number 1 receiver was Adam Thielen, which, don't get me wrong, he still can play, but he's not number 1. Not number 1. So, yeah, they added a lot of pieces. They did everything they could in the offseason to provide for Bryce Young, but now he's got to go out there and show why he was drafted number 1 overall. Because drafted number 2 overall, C.J. Stroud has shown to be a much better quarterback than Bryce Young so far. C.J. Stroud's in my top 10. Bryce Young's probably number 30, 31, 32. So it's really the drastic performance between C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young's rookie season. It's very drastic. But I do think Bryce Young can bounce back. This is the season, though. If he doesn't perform well this season, you're going to be worried being a Panthers fan, for sure. With all the talent they put around him. I'm not telling him to win 10 games, but let's see you win 7 to 8, be competitive, and show progression. That's all we're asking for. But there's a lot of pressure, for sure. Number 4, Trevor Lawrence. Highest paid player in the NFL as far as average annual value. Tied with Joe Burrow. He has not played anywhere near deserving of that contract. Okay? I agreed to pick up his 5th-year option. I agree with that. What was that, 30-something million? Trevor Lawrence for 30-something million, that's a good deal. He's a top 20 quarterback. Stop arguing with me. I know people don't think he's a top 10 quarterback, and I absolutely agree. I understand that. But to say that he's worse than Daniel Jones, the same as Daniel Jones, watch the games, man. Watch the games. Sometimes it's the eye testing. Like Justin Herbert, people saying he sucks and everything. Watch the games. Watch some of the throws he makes, some of the times he's carried the team with all the injuries. That's kind of the same thing with Trevor Lawrence here. He was hurt at the end of last season, but he needs to go out there and perform. He is now the highest paid player at the NFL right now. He needs to play like it. He needs to play like a top 10 quarterback. He needs to give this team a playoff push. And look, I would have rather seen one more season before I paid him. I'd rather pay him a little bit more money, $5 million more per year, whatever, to be sure and to feel good about it. I'm sure the Jaguars don't necessarily feel good about it right now. I would have waited this season, but they didn't. He got paid. Now he has to perform. Trevor Lawrence at 4. Number 5, the guy who I just talked about comparing to Trevor Lawrence, Daniel Jones, making $41 million a year. This is the last year that the Giants are locked into this deal. It's a 4-year deal, but 2 years of fully guaranteed money. So after this, they can kind of opt out and get rid of him. Some penalty, slight penalty, but they can get out of it. He made the playoffs, won a playoff game, but let's be honest, that year, one of his best seasons, if not his best season, he was average, slightly above average. What was it, 15 touchdown passes? I know he ran for 7, but if you're a running quarterback, I like to see 32 total touchdowns, not 22. So I think his best season was his rookie season where he threw 24 touchdowns in 12 games, 24 touchdown passes. But he also had 12 interceptions, a bunch of fumbles, so he had a lot of turnovers. But I want to see Brian Dable unlock Daniel Jones a little bit here. Be aggressive. I don't want to see him playing it too safe, taking care of the ball. You lost Saquon Barkley, so you don't really have that safety blanket anymore. You have Malik Neighbors over the top, who ran, a 4.340. So I want to see Daniel Jones get aggressive. Again, this is another team where I'm not saying win 10 games, make the playoffs. But if you win 6 or 7 and Daniel Jones throws 25 touchdown passes and it's more of not having talent around him, that's a different story. But to be paid like the way he's getting paid, I know a lot of quarterbacks make a lot more money nowadays. $41 million is still too much. It's too much for Daniel Jones. To be making that kind of money, they had to get rid of Saquon Barkley because of Daniel Jones' contract. And, I think Saquon Barkley, I do think that's the right move for the Giants in the long run, but still, it just shows you lose talent when you have to pay the quarterback, and when the quarterback's like average, slightly above average, you're not really going anywhere because you're locked into that contract and you don't really have pieces around him, which is kind of the situation the Giants are in. Darren Waller retired. Other than Malik Neighbors, who we think is going to be special, still unproven. You got Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson. I like Wan'Dale, but like a bunch of unproven guys pretty much. Hyatt. Bellinger showed promise of rookie season, the tight end, but like again, this is a guy who's not really that much proven. I like Singletary, but that's your best back. Like, come on. So their line sucks. So it's gonna be rough for him. I think this is the last year of Daniel Jones as a New York Giant, but there's a ton of pressure on him. But I think people are down on him. I don't think a lot of other people have pressure on him because I think they know he sucks. But I think I have pressure on him because I know this. I live in New York, so I have a lot of Giant fans that I'm friends with, and they have expectations for this guy. This is make or break year. So it's either if he doesn't perform here, he's never going to be a starting quarterback in the league again. I think he has a long career as a backup after that, but this is it for him as a starter. So he either performs or he's out. Number 6, Dak Prescott. A lot of the pressure for Dak Prescott is just being the Cowboys quarterback. Being a Dallas Cowboys quarterback, we saw it with Tony Romo, saw it with Troy Aikman, we saw it with a lot of quarterbacks. It causes natural pressure. But there is a chance that the Dallas Cowboys might not be willing to give him a big deal. Slight chance. I think they will, but there's a slight chance. They did not make any big moves in the offseason. I think that's because they want to see what Dak can do when he doesn't have a completely stacked team. He, behind Deshaun Watson, is the second highest cap hit in the league this season. So they didn't really have much of an option. Now you see CeeDee Lamb's unhappy. He wants to get paid. Micah Parsons is going to want to get paid eventually. So you are going to have, between Dak, Micah Parsons, and CeeDee Lamb, someone that's probably going to be the odd man out. Will it be Dak? I don't know. But being the second highest cap hit in the league, you're not going to get much talent around you in free agency. So I think Jerry Jones wants to see, can Dak lead them to another 12-win season, maybe divisional? I want to see him make the NFC Championship game. I think that's the next step for Dak to take. And if he doesn't get there, I really don't know what's in store for him next because, yes, he puts up top 10 numbers in the regular season. 12 wins in the last 3 seasons. 12 wins 3 seasons in a row. And there's something to be said about that. He's always in the playoffs. If you have Dak Prescott, you're a playoff team. He's going to throw 25, 30 touchdown passes, be elite in the regular season, beat up on the bad teams. But we see him against good teams. We see him in critical moments on national TV, and he always seems to come up short. And not only come up short, make boneheaded plays. That's kind of been Dak's MO. He has not made an NFC Championship game. Until he makes one, I can't really take him seriously. I can't. So that's really Dak's knock. He's got to get paid. To get paid, you got to win more in the playoffs. That's really what it comes down to with Dak. I don't really doubt him in the regular season anymore. I doubt him in the postseason. And unlike this next person, number 7, Tua, I doubt this guy in the regular season and the postseason. Dak and Tua are very similar. They're both looking for big deals. They're both kind of hovering around that 10 to 16 best quarterback in the league. They both put up numbers in the regular season, but you don't trust either of them. But I trust Dak to get me to the playoffs. I trust Dak to win me a division most of the time. I trust Dak to put up big numbers in the regular season and beat up on the bad teams. Tua, yes, he can beat up on the bad teams. The 70-point game. Led the league in passing yards last season. Puts up numbers too. But then the last 5 games of the regular season kind of started to choke a little bit. Why? 1, started to play playoff teams. And 2, cold weather. Anything under 40 degrees, the guy's a terrible quarterback. Anytime against an elite team, guy's a terrible quarterback. The Chiefs game, he was pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. And yes, it was like, the 4th coldest game in NFL history. And yes, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. But it seems like the combination of those two things, the cold weather and good teams, he comes up short. So he's in a little bit of a different situation than Dak, because while I do think Dak can get hot, and Dak last season was probably the best season that Dak has ever had statistically in his career. And Dak was statistically was a top 5 quarterback last season, the regular season. You can't deny that. He was second in MVP voting. Tua is the opposite. Tua, I don't really trust in the regular season or the playoffs. Dak, I know, is going to win me like last 3 seasons in a row, 12 games, won some divisions, gets me to the playoffs, won the division last season. Tua started off strong, either gets hurt or started off strong and choked to Buffalo. So I still haven't seen Tua win the division. I know Dak can win me divisions. I don't think Tua can. I don't know, and I don't think so. And think about it. How will he win in the playoffs when Baltimore, Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, potentially New York, all cold weather cities in the AFC come in January. All cold weather cities. And unless you get a home playoff game, you're going to be on the road in some cold-ass weather, so you better hope you get a playoff game at home, Tua. You better hope you get a home playoff game, that's for sure. All right, so that's all I have for today. Thanks, guys, and I'll see you next week. Take care.